Hey, beautiful. You are listening to the Africana Woman podcast. My name is Chulu, your host. As you know, April is the month of health here in the Africana Woman universe. But first of all, I have a small favor to ask. If you are loving these interviews and conversations and lessons, and you're getting something out of this, I would love for you to tell someone else about the Africana Woman podcast. It's as easy as sharing it with them or posting about it on your socials, or you can rate and review the podcast on iTunes. This really helps us reach more people. Listen, our goal is to be the #1 resource for African women's well-being. So we can do this together. Let people know we are here to help. If you are new to the Africana Woman podcast, I want you to know that every week I ask an Africana woman to invite us into her home, to give us a snapshot into what happens behind her closed doors. She is not famous. She is simply the girl next door. She is just like you. I hope you will join me on this journey of discovery, revelation, and self-awareness. This episode is brought to you by the Africana Women Visionaries. This is the premier network for female entrepreneurs of African descent. You can learn more about the Visionaries and how you can be a part of this amazing group of women by visiting at Africana Woman on Instagram or Facebook. Ooh, this health series is really coming for my edges, guys. Like, our guest, Carolyn, does not hold anything back as she explains how our spiritual pain manifests in our body. Basically, when we have physical ailments, we rush to treat the symptom and not the actual root cause. If you listen carefully, there are a couple of moments that Carolyn did a cold read on my issues. I was like, is that what we're doing today? So this episode, it addresses both the physical and spiritual health. I don't want to give too many spoilers, so here is my conversation with Carolyn Zimba. Carolyn Zimba is the CEO of Empowered Alignment. She was born in Zambia, and at the age of 5, Carolyn moved to England. She is a movement specialist. However, she did train as an engineer, and she fondly says that she has a fascination in the mechanics of bodies. Her work focuses on the spiritual plane. Carolyn, welcome to Africana Woman Podcast. I am so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really blessed to even be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, so let's get started. I know so many times the work that we do end up doing that is, purpose work is very much derived from our own stories. And I know the work that you do deals with the body and trauma and healing trauma that's in the body. So I really want you to take us to the story of how you found yourself on this journey to empowered alignment.
Okay, well, that's a long, I'm not sure we've got enough time for that. Well, empowered alignment. For me, I'm really passionate about empowerment because I think I've been in a place where I didn't feel powerful. I felt very disempowered. And so it's my, I suppose, passion to empower people to actually step into their authority. And I use the word authority specifically because as a Christian, we need to step into our authority. We have authority on this earth and we need to step into that. And so for me, for many, many years, I think I searched for something. I didn't know what it was, but I just remember feeling very alone, very lost. And always, I remember writing a poem in college and at university, actually, and it said something like, have you ever been in a room where you're got surrounded by so many people, yet you feel so alone. And that's how I used to feel. I always felt quite alone. I felt like I was disconnected from people, my family. And as much as I'm probably one of the most friendly people you'll ever meet, I used to feel very, displaced. And so it was a learning curve of just things happening along the way to kind of get to where I am today, and the way, I suppose, if you think about stories, we all have stories and we all have come from somewhere, and these stories are what define us. And so the decisions we make based around those stories are what actually bring us to where we are today. I always say that we are the sum accumulation of all of our experiences. And so for me, it's a case of, okay, at 5 years old, or maybe I was 3 years old. I think my little brother was born. I was born 78. He was born 81. So I was 3. I was left at my grandmother's house while my mum was doing her thing. And I think she just had my brother. And it wasn't just me. I know my other siblings were there as well. But for me as a female, that age was a very significant age. So I always felt like, I think I felt quite abandoned. But it's not something that I was ever aware of really until I got a lot older, where it was like, okay, processing, why do I feel this way and what happened?
How long did they leave you there though?
It was only about a year, which is not long. It's not long, right? But if you think of a 3 year old.
No, because when you were saying it, I was like, oh, maybe it's like they left you for 5 days, but then you're like, a year, girl, that's a long time.
For a 3-year-old, it's a really long time. But I realized that, my mom didn't want to do it. It was just a situation we were in. They were coming to England. It worked out the way it worked out. And it's not even an issue. And it's not something where I expect anyone to feel any kind of guilt. It's just a case of, at 3 years old, the 3-year-old brain went, where's my mummy going? Why is she not here? And then, she probably would have been pregnant as well. And so, she's nursing a pregnancy. She's got a young 3-year-old. On top of that, she's got 1, 2, 3, 4 other boys. So, for a young woman who was in, I think, her 30s, early 20s, I think, when she had us. So you can imagine how difficult it was for her anyway. And for that to be in Zambia, it's not easy. So already I have so much respect for my mother. I really do. But it's taken a few years to get to this point where you can say, what, Mum? Honestly, thank you. I love you. I respect you. And I couldn't do it. I'm 42 and I'm like, gosh, can you imagine having those many kids at that time, at that age? It's not easy. And so, but the 3-year-old me made that decision. And then I guess you kind of look for evidence for that decision or that belief. And if you think about any kind of belief that we all have, we'll be looking for evidence. That thing that you're looking for, you will find. And so for me, it was about abandonment, where I've got I can even count off my hand a few friends who literally were there. And the next minute we weren't connected. We weren't talking, nothing. It was like they just kind of said, sayonara, Carolyn, off you go. I think it was 4 of them who actually initially we were tight. When I say tight, best friends, sharing a bed, spend all your time together, go out together, go on holiday, do whatever stuff. And then it's like, okay, all of a sudden they're just you're not friends anymore. So that kind of added, and all these little micro traumas that you go through life as well. Even when I was 11 years old, I was groomed by one of my auntie's friends who came to the house and was doing some random stuff. Luckily, it didn't get to, the crazy abuse stuff, but it still definitely made a big dent in terms of my growth and my development into an adult. Because I remember saying at 13 to my mom, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to get a boyfriend. I'm not getting anyone, and I remember making that decision. It's not going to happen. But that came about, I guess, I think I had my first boyfriend at 25 and it was fine, had the relationship, whatever. But again, I was still operating on, I think, whatever programming I had. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that I kind of figured out.
Okay, let's slow it down a little. Yeah. Let's talk about, because you said
that is a lot of information for you.
I know, there's a lot in there already. So you said at 11, you were groomed by your aunt. What does that mean?
My aunt's friend or some guy. So he would have been in his 30s and I was 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he came around the house. He was like, oh, hi, could you get me some water? Went into the kitchen and then he was, anyway, we won't talk about what happened, but suffice it to say, I remember being sat in church I can't remember which it is, to be honest. I think it was both, probably two triggers. One, I was in church, or I was watching a TV program about abuse, or, telling kids, if this stuff happens, it's not right. Make sure you tell somebody, da, 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 da. And I remember sitting there, and I think in my head, I have a picture of me sitting in a pew at church and looking up at the priest, and he was talking, whatever he was saying. And I remember thinking, oh, that's why it doesn't feel right. Because obviously at 11, I had no idea. Who knows, and also in those days, we're talking what? So like 30 years ago, the way children grow up now, everything is so sexualized, whereas at that age, that was not the case. And so, I didn't really have a clue what was going on. And so when I heard that, I remember the next time he came around, this is me stepping into my authority. I have this picture of me in my head, little Carolyn standing there in the kitchen. And he's coming along, he's like, oh, come. So I went in and he's like, oh, and he tried to touch me again. And I said, no. I remember standing there. I remember standing and feeling very expanded and big and saying, no. I just said, no, get out, no. And that's all I remember of the occasion. I'm sure more was said. And he went, oh, you've grown up now. And I said, yes, get out or something. I don't even know, but I never told anybody about it until I was about 18. And that was to one of my college friends, college. But I never told anybody. So it's quite a big thing. And to be honest, even though I'm telling you about this, I haven't actually discussed it with my siblings, apart from my sister. So if my brother is hearing this, I'm sorry, guys, that you're finding out about it now. I'm fine, honestly, well adjusted now. It explains a lot about my behavior.
So Carolyn, okay, let's just talk about this, because we on the podcast, we talk a lot about, how culture influences, especially women's lives, and, being in such a situation as a young girl, at 11 years old, and not being able to tell anyone and speak to anyone about it. Why do you think that was?
I don't even know. I literally, when I look back, I'm thinking, why did I not tell anybody? I don't know if it never occurred to me. I really don't know. I know that my mom was, she had a lot of work to do. She was out working. My grandmother was, and it's funny because my grandmother was in the other room. And
where was Dad?
This was here in the UK. And my dad was here, in Zambia. He was there.
Okay.
So Dad was there, Mum was here, but she was at work, and she worked like late out, long hours, because she had mouths to feed. There's a lot of us, and we ate a lot. But yeah, that's the thing, and that's where I don't even know how I didn't think to tell anybody. And even to this day, I sit here and I think, I don't know why I didn't say anything, because I would want to know. If I was a mother, my God, the way I'd get match it. Let's go. And it never occurred to me. I don't know why. I really don't know. And I can't even answer that question, but I think it's not a good thing, because, I should have at least been able to go and say to somebody, look, this is happening. Because, there's some cultures where you say that and people don't believe. And it's funny because, some of my clients, I deal with that kind of stuff now. So when they tell me, I'm like, okay, I get it. I absolutely get it. It's like, right, let's get you to a place where you feel empowered and strong. And so I don't know. And it's a good question culturally. And you know what, for me, gets me, right? This Me Too movement recently, it's like every single woman I've spoken to or know has a story to tell. Yeah. Everyone has a story, even if it was a wolf here, or this uncle did what, this somebody did this, so-and-so did that, and then I don't know. It's like, where is that? I mean, I know somebody as well who they told their mother was also didn't feel empowered enough to do anything about it either. So then you're like, okay, what happened? What's happening with society that we're in a position where people feel this way? It's like, no, we are, we're created as, how would I say it? Like helpers to men, right? But the men, when you look in the Bible, it's so interesting. And it talks about husbands and wives. Obviously, it talks about the role of the man in the family. We talk about the husband in the family, the wife in the family. What I love about it is that they say the wife has to respect the husband. Okay, but the husband has to love the wife. He has to love God. He has to love the wife. So if you love somebody, the way you treat them is super respectful, you love them, you cherish them, you care about them, of course, that woman respects you. She's going to love you back because you're treating her so wonderfully, right? Mm-hmm. But then, it's this idea that women are here for men's pleasure. And, it's okay to pat a woman on the back, on the bottom, or do whatever. And I've had that as well. I've had someone pinch my butt, pat me on the back, someone flash me here and there. There are stories, and I even think about it now. There are far too many of these stories. And I'm sure the people listening now can probably go, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I had something happen. Even down to like in my workplace where some other guy got promoted above me, yet I'd been there longer and I trained him up. I knew more than he did, yet he got promoted. It's like, and at the time I didn't feel empowered enough to say something and go, why are you promoting him? I should have got that promotion, because there was absolutely there was, in terms of quality skill set, nothing apart from he was better at ass licking. Excuse the language. I'm sorry. I did not mean to.
Okay. So we moved.
How passionate I was about this topic until you asked. Now I'm like,
well, I know. Okay, let's move on. So we've got two, significant traumatic experiences from your childhood. That's, when you were 3 years old and when you were 11 years old. Did any other incidences happen when you were older?
No, not really. I think it's more just, I always talk about microtraumas.
What's a microtrauma? Define it for us.
Okay, my definition of microtrauma. So like, say someone says something to you, it's a small thing. You don't pay it much heed, but depending on who said it, that's the difference it will make to you. You know, and if you're not in a place where you are fully solid and unshakable in your strength, you're going to take it on board. Even if you say, oh, whatever, and then it'll start sitting and it's like a little, or I don't know. The way I can describe it is this way. So this is about one lady I worked with, right? I'll try and make this quick. She came to me. She had a sore shoulder. It was her left shoulder. It was really sore, right? Okay. And she could only raise her arm about that high from, she couldn't raise it. Your arm's supposed to go up here. Raise it up here. So we started, I started getting it stretched, move around. We're discussing things about what happened, how long she's had it. So simply, she'd had it for about 6 months. I saw her in December. 6 months back, that would have been summer holidays, okay? So she's got a child, 10-year-old. Childcare was a bit of an issue because she, obviously working. She's a single mother, so that was an issue. She wasn't living in England, so that means she's away from that family support unit. So if you need like childcare, or drop him off at our aunts and uncles or whatever, not possible. Okay, so having a conversation with mum. Mum obviously is matriarch, raised you, birthed you. Somehow transpired that made her feel like she wasn't a good mother. That she was failing and she wasn't very good. And, obviously she would have been sat there going, you know what, I want to do the best for my son. And so because it was the left side talks about femininity, your feminine side, your right side is your masculine side. And then also shoulders, it kind of relates to like, say when they say you've got the weight of the world in your shoulders, or if you ever notice when you really like feel overwhelmed and you've got lots and lots of work to get done, where do you feel it the most?
Me? Really in the shoulders? I feel like it's like at the base of my spine. Okay. That's where I get really stressed.
That's another one, yes. That's a whole other one. A lot of people put it there too. But again, if you're sitting a lot, lower spine, it's more about feeling worthy and, oh gosh, I'm not doing a great job. Like if you're getting bullied, potentially you feel it there because they're kind of like belittling you. But shoulders, actually that makes sense because then that makes a lot of sense. The lower back, talk about that later. But the shoulders, and so the shoulders, she felt very overwhelmed, too much work, but it was the left shoulder because so when I was asking her, I said, who were you talking to? So she said, mom, and feminine. Okay, that makes, because it was the left side, so I knew it was it was a female in her life somewhere. So whatever her mother said went right into that shoulder where she felt like she wasn't doing a good job. And therefore, she couldn't raise her arm. So by the time we were done, and we were doing whatever we were doing, she was on the floor. I got her into this twist. She was very much nursing this arm and really couldn't do anything with it. And then I got her to do a twist and she was lying on the floor. And I remember just saying to her, I said, you're doing a great job, right? Being a mother is not easy, and being a single mom is even more challenging. And then she was like, the next thing I hear, I can't even do the sound. They basically was sobbing.
Yeah.
Like full on, all out, deep, gut wrenching sobbing. That was like deep. So I was like, I'll just get you some tissue. I'll just leave you for a moment. Went off, came back. She had like kind of 5 minutes, cried her eyes out, came out, twisted her into the other side, got her up, sat up. I said, put your arms above your head.
Straight.
And I said, look. She went, what? I said, look. She was like, what? I said, look at your arms. She went, oh my gosh. She was just like, I can't believe it. I said, oh, it's okay. Don't worry. And she was done, and off she went. She was very happy. But, you know, so when you think about microtraumas, it's just like, it could be anything. Small things people say to you. It could be, you know, some people, when you hear about these like really famous people say, oh, what did you overcome in your life? Oh, well, you know, I overcame bullying when I was such and such an age. Bullying, you know, experiencing that is trauma. It could be like little words of belittlement throughout the day. From people. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that you know or somebody, but you know, it's whatever we take on depending on how much strength we feel in ourselves. And so microtrauma, it's kind of like, you know, you pick up lots of different things that would have happened along the way. And, you know, they would have been less than desirable experiences, but then they make you who you are. And it's how you determine those experiences that will kind of get you to a place of feeling the way you feel. Like when I was in India and I was doing my training, and I decided I was going to take 3 days of silence because my roommate was driving me nuts. And it was like, either punch her or to stay silent. Now, I wouldn't have punched her. I'm really not violent. I don't know why I'm even coming across like that. Or I'm very chilled most of the time. But anyway, she was driving me nuts and she was staying up late and she was like on her phone until silly o'clock. And then she couldn't wake up at 4 o'clock or 4:30 when we needed to wake up. And I'm like, but if you go to bed so late and you have your phone, you're kicking, and I'm trying to sleep. So it was this whole like, can you have your own worst enemy kind of thing. Anyway, I did 3 days where I was like, I'm not speaking. So I went to my classes, did whatever, and I was just chilling. And I was walking back to class one lunchtime. And I remember laughing. I can laugh about it now, but at the time, I was vexed. So I just felt this whack on the back of my head, and I'm like, and literally there was some kids that had thrown one of those water bombs, you know, the balloon with water at the back of my head. And because obviously me, I don't look like, I'm not a typical Indian, obviously. And so I don't look like a typical tourist because there's a lot of like Caucasians, but not very many African with an Afro walking around in the middle of a small city in India. And so I turned around and I remember just shouting, yes!
Out of your silence.
Supposed to be silence. I was just like, I remember just going, oh my God. And then I looked around and they ran off. And I went, do you know what? They know they weren't supposed to do that because if they didn't, they would have stuck around and been silly and whatever. But they knew they weren't supposed to do it. So they ran off. They were little kids. We're talking like 10, 9, 8. They were small. They ran off. And so I spent the rest of the afternoon really irritated and really angry and had to work through the whole emotion of how vexed I was about that situation happening. And because I wasn't speaking, I couldn't sort of be there going, oh my gosh, you never guess what happened, and pump up all the energy around the whole story and everything. And so the idea of what stories do we put and what energy do you put in these stories about ourselves and, the little traumas that we have. So really, I teach people how to kind of process that out of the system and let go of it and just be like, you know what? You got to just be the calm within the storm, man. The storm's in a rage around you no matter what, but you've got to stay calm. And, that's where I'm working. That's what I'm working on. Like, stuff in the world right now is nuts. But I'm I choose to stay calm. I choose to stay rooted and grounded and unshakable. Whatever craziness people are going to manifest around me, it's like, you do your thing. For me, I'm just going to chill. And I know it's kind of irritating for some people that I'm this calm.
So,
and I'm like, it's my choice.
But Carolyn, why did you go study engineering, and then how did you transition to health and wellness? How does that happen?
Well, it happens when you don't have enough money to finish your engineering degree, basically.
Okay.
So I did the first year, and I got pretty decent grades. And it was manufacturing engineering with French to be exact. So je parle un peu le français. I didn't have enough money to finish, unfortunately. And so it was like, okay, what do? You got to work. And I guess I spent the next however many years just doing odd jobs here. I worked like in retail. I've worked in help desk administrator, lots of admin kind of roles. And then at 25, I started doing yoga. And then I did my training after 10 years. And I guess I was teaching I've been teaching for the last 7 years. And I've only just recently decided that I'm not doing yoga anymore. Well, technically I didn't. God decided. And I'm a very obedient child, so I have to do what he says. But it kind of makes sense to me now. I totally understand why. But it meant I always had an interest in, I suppose, helping to feeling better and like just doing stuff around making sure people felt good, felt happy. And the idea of someone not feeling powerful for me is like anathema. I don't like that. It just drives me nuts. I'm like, no, I refuse for you to be handing your power over to somebody else. You know, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. And I don't know, I just think, I think what it was is the way Empowered Alignment actually came about was, first of all, that name came about, I think, last year. And my program Aligned Movement came about during the pandemic, over like March, April time. Because all my classes stopped, and at that point I was still teaching yoga. But I'd become born again the year before in October. So I think I'd already started shifting and changing and stepping away from yoga and realizing there's far too many doorways that you're opening there, and it just doesn't work for me. But in terms of physicality and movement, there's certain things there. But I use like Pilates, Alexander technique, personal training, a whole different kind of I basically, I'm like one of those people who creates a cocktail out of throw me some stuff and tell me what you need. I'm like, okay, here you are. This is what you need. And it's usually the right thing. And that's not me. That again comes from the Most High. But the whole idea was that when I was teaching, I found certain, what's the word I can use? Commonalities through people. Okay. Where they'd come and they'd have the same complaints. And I'm like, why are you putting yourself through this? You know, the same kind of habits and things that people were doing. And so I was doing these sequences. And I remember when I first started teaching, you know, I had my little notebook or I had my phone. I'd be there. Okay, well, you know, while they're doing that, let me just check what's the next what's the next pose that I've done? Okay, I've written it down. Okay, cool. Right, the next one. You know, I'll be doing that. I'll have written it down somewhere and I'm checking. And I just, you know, anyway, it was what it was. And then I just started finding myself where I started building sequences and in my head, and I'd be just like, okay, add that. And then I'd go to a session, no phone, nothing, no planning. I just turn up and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, hi guys, how are you doing today? What do you feel like? How are you feeling? Talk to me about what's going on. Shoulders, hips, back, always. Shoulders, hips, back. I'm like, okay, guys. But you know, that's evidence of modern technology, modern life, sitting a lot, being overworked and not getting enough rest, you know, all of the things that make up this kind of instantness of modern life. And so I was like, okay, we need to, so I'd just be working and, you know, do my sequences and everything. And then it got to a point where at the end of the sessions, I'd end up doing like 5-10 minutes of chit chat. Yeah. And I'm like, sometimes I even surprise myself, like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is what I have to say. So I'll be talking about things like, you know what, you need to forgive yourself, all right? You have to forgive yourself. Because if you don't forgive yourself, it's like taking poison and it eats up at you from the inside out. Or I was saying, look, if you're mad at somebody else, don't get mad at them. Just forgive them. The forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you stopping it from inside of you. Because any unforgiveness you have, whether it's towards you or towards somebody else, it eats you inside. It's like giving someone else, it's like you taking poison, expecting someone else to die. It's like you're the one who dies. So I think there's been like studies where they talk about, I think with cancer and the link between unforgiveness, which is really interesting stuff out there. And people don't seem to realize it, that there are whole stuff from years before. But I got interested in the whole idea of not just the mechanics, but the spiritual, the psychological and emotional side of the human being, as it were. Because everyone's busy running around being a human doing. It's like, stop being be a being, because you are a being. And, you know, you are far more powerful than this physical world that you think you exist in. When I worked with the lady, she's 84. Now this woman, 84 years old. she's still angry at her dad at 5.
Wow.
Can you imagine? We fixed that though. We sorted it. She's fine now.
Okay.
But, at the time, it was like, why is this an issue? And I asked her, tell me, why are you so mad at him? And there was all these little things that happened. At 5 years old, he left, went off to I think it was wartime. So yeah, he went off to war. And when he came back, a bit of a changed man. Clearly, whatever he saw out in the war was, damaged him a little bit. But then, he was very strict. And so there were all these things up to when she was 16 that she still held grudges against him. And it was like, but that's what people don't realize. They hold all this trauma. It sits in your body. Someone who's overweight, trauma sits in your fat. You get rid of that fat, get rid of that trauma, and just allow yourself space to be.
Girl, after the year we just had, I know as an entrepreneur and a leader, things got real lonely really fast. Uncertainty has become the order of the day, and yet we must continue to not only survive but thrive. So as a leader, who do you turn to fill your cup, to give you inspiration, to teach you and to mentor you? We have created a community just for this very reason, to support each other, to hold each other accountable, and to be each other's cheerleaders. This group is called the Africana Women Visionaries because we're looking past the storm and are focused on the vision we have for our companies and the African continent. Join the Africana Women Visionaries free Facebook group to learn more. Now back to the conversation.
Okay, so I want to just talk a little bit more about the disconnect that you found with yoga and your faith, which is Christianity. Just tell us a little bit more about that, because I know, many African countries are either Christian or, either Muslim or
some other things. Even Christianity, there's a difference between being spiritual and between being spiritual and being religious. And when you're religious, there are a lot of doctrines, certain rules that you have to follow. You must do this, you must eat like this, and da-da-da-da-da. And there are a lot of religions that do that, it's like, okay. And as far as I'm concerned, there's only one, spirituality. And that is, I trust my God is God, and he's not steered me wrong. And since I really built my relationship with him, the way my life has changed, I can't even tell you. And I think about the things that he's done for me. Even just prime example, my teeth are a little bit straighter than they used to be. I have photographic evidence. My eyes, I stopped wearing my glasses. I stopped wearing my contact lens about 2 months ago. I decided I'm not going to I don't need them.
Nice.
And to be honest, my body's catching up with what's going on in the spirit world, as it were, because I don't need them, because glasses are like crutches. If you wear them, the muscles in your eyes kind of, they don't work and they stop. So now it's like, okay, my eyes are starting to learn to use themselves again, because I've been wearing glasses since I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. So when you talk about the yoga opening doors, what does that mean? If somebody's listening, they may not understand, are you talking about literal doors? What's going on?
Spiritual doors. I mean, I don't want to freak people out, because it's quite a big thing. And, it's not something I really talk about in public. So I'm sure I'll probably get a bit of okay, people thinking, okay, she's a bit nuts. But think of, I don't know, there are certain things that if you do, you're kind of opening doorways. Think about astrology, tarot cards, everyone's heard of a Ouija board. Apparently even rock music. And there's a whole host of other things that I kind of picked up on that I learned about. There's a really interesting book. It's called Set the Captives Free. It's like, okay.
Set the Captives Free?
Yeah. I tell you, that was an eye-opener, is all I'm going to say. An eye-opener. And, I've had experiences of things. So, I don't in any way doubt there are those things out there. And, also being an African, we have our witchcraft and all that stuff in Africa, where people put curses on people and all that kind of stuff, which is really scary. And I had my own stuff I had to deal with, that I had to process and work out of my system, even in terms of just kind of the spiritual things, like the spiritual baggage that you pick up along the way. So when I say you're open doorways, you're picking up spiritual baggage. And it's like, people need to be careful. You know, there's a scripture in the Bible, I can't remember what it is, but I was reading it the other day and I was like, you know what? That was me. It says, ignorance kills. Okay, that's like a paraphrase. I'm paraphrasing it, but it says ignorance leads to death, basically. But we're talking like final, not like just the physical, but we're talking about the spiritual side as well, where you're kind of opening up doorways to certain things that really you don't want to be. And that was for one of the things for me. I was like, I'm not doing yoga anymore because I don't want to be opening doorways to people unwittingly to certain things. It's like, oh, I'm stepping back from that. And I can see a difference in my life in terms of when I was busy, like when I was deep doing my thing, you know.
Because you did it for 16 years.
A long time. Yeah, I would. But you know, after 16 years, surely I should be a success, right? I should be doing great things. I should be well known. 16 years is a long time. Yet that's not what happened. I didn't have much success, like in terms of like financially. Even when I would do stuff, it would look like it was going to be really great and work out really well, and it just wouldn't, you know. I thought anything that was like, I found that anything that's not of God is very temporary. You get the beginning stuff, but then there's all these like, how can I put it? There's always like a clause in there somewhere. So it doesn't work out, you know. And I've done like really great day retreats. I've done this and the other, but it just didn't work out. Whereas so far, you know, I'm in a year in and I trust God anyway. I'm not even stressed about it. It's like my faith now is so like, I trust him. When he says he's going to do something, he gonna do it. And he has like, I mean, you know, the apartment I'm in now, my living room is massive. And I remember walking in and just going, this is mine. This is my flat. And, you know, to get it was a mission and a half. And, you know, the amount of stress I went through, I slept on the living room floor in my auntie's house for a month. While this whole place was trying to get through the like contracts and getting the passing the checks and everything. It took ages. Got it in the end, and I'm so happy to be here. But for a long time, I was very transient. Like I never wanted to settle down. I didn't want to put my roots or anything, and just a whole load of stuff. And also even to the fact that I never even, to be honest, this is probably more to do with what happened when I was younger. That I never, as much as I said I wanted to get married and have kids, I never saw myself getting married and having children. I just didn't believe it, even though I would say it with my mouth. And, you know, 42, you're thinking, what? You know, why aren't you married? And it's funny because none of my family have ever asked me, it's like, why aren't you married? They just kind of look at me, which is really funny because you know how some people always like.
Interesting. I know, right?
I know, right? I don't. But to be fair, yeah, anyway, so that was that. But I've seen a vision of my wedding. I actually had a vision the other day of my husband and I was like, you know, I don't know what he looks like or anything. It was more about the feeling of how I felt around him, and my wedding dress and everything was epic. And so it was kind of like, it was just a really lovely feeling.
Yeah.
You know, of just feeling loved. That's what it was. It was feeling loved. And I truly believe that will happen for me, you know. But in terms of like, you know, I used to spend 6 hours with my astrologist in India. I wouldn't do that now.
Okay.
I wouldn't even read a horoscope.
Okay. So going back to, you know, the trauma and healing of the trauma, I heard somewhere that there is such a thing as like, well, I want to find out from you anyway. Can trauma be passed down from generation to generation?
Yeah, it can. There's ancestral trauma, ancestral curses that you can have. But also, you know, when a woman gets pregnant, right? They say that the way the body is, it's like that you have to start preparing your body 2 years before you get pregnant. Apparently, because then in terms of what cells are processing and functioning in your system. So if your mother is pregnant, or if a woman is pregnant, if a woman is going through trauma during her pregnancy, that child is going to pick up on those things in the womb, you know? So you know how they say, oh, play classical music for your baby bump, because then your baby will be a lot more intelligent, this, that, and the other, you know? So it's kind of the same thing. If you're going by that basis, if you can play classical music and get your child to be a little bit more intelligent, then you can do the same thing with, how can I put it? You can do the same thing with, or how to say, the same thing would happen if someone's going through a bad experience.
Yeah, a negative thing.
Yeah. And so that's not cool.
So, okay, I guess for me, when I think of how much trauma has gone through, Africans have been through, from, our children being taken away, families being split because of slavery, colonization, civil wars, fighting for independence, the list goes on and on. There's all these different traumas that have happened through, our generations. But what would you advise for there to be some collective healing of that trauma?
Yeah. Oh, that is a big question, man. That's, collective healing. That's a big job.
At least an individual. What can we do?
As an individual, okay, because, that question is like, okay, there's only one, like I would say, okay, if you're going to trust someone to fix that, God, because there's a lot. Basically, I mean, it's kind of like, if you look at how I found it really that has been quite interesting is if you look at, say, a Black person, I really don't like using the word Black because, I'm not Black, I'm brown. But anyway, Afro-Caribbean, whatever. An African person. But if you look at, say, somebody who was born and raised in, like, say, America, and their grand ancestors generational lived there, compared to, say, someone in England, same thing, ancestral generations, and then compare it to somebody who was, say, born and raised in Africa, I think I'm a lot more well-adjusted than some of the Caribbean people that I've met, or like American, Afro-Caribbean people. But just because I think there is so much trauma sitting in their cells that hasn't been healed. I mean, the amount of problems they have with violence and everything, like even amongst each other, it's like the hatred and that's just continuously, manifested and regurgitated through people. It's so sad, I would love to see a world where people just manifested love, for themselves, for other people. And if you treat other people the way you love yourself, it makes life so much easier, right? So if I were to kind of advise anyone on what would you do as an individual, I would say manifest peace and manifest love. And that means whoever you encounter, imagine that's you. How would you expect to be treated? And so if everyone's behaving in that way, then somewhere along the way, things are going to be nice. Everyone's going to feel good, because everyone is treating everybody with love, with that respect. And I know it sounds kind of wishy-washy and very airy-fairy, but it's actually not that difficult, It's like, for example, one of the things I do is I work for a call center, and it's so funny. I was like, I don't know why I'm getting this particular job. It kind of helped with the flat and stuff. And, passing my credit checks and whatnot, which is great. But the nice thing, it's part-time. I just do it a few hours. It sort of pays for this place while I'm, busy with my business and stuff. But what I really love about what it's taught me is how to manifest that love that God teaches us. And, because he says, treat others as you would like to be treated, with love. Love others as you'd love yourself, as it were. And so I've had calls where literally people are screaming down the phone at me, angry, like belligerent, and the kind of person where if you were really not in the calm mindset that I was, there would be a lot of effing and blinding and basically you turn the air like a bright blue haze, the whole room. It would be blue. And so, I had calls like that where people have been so angry and I'm there, I'm trying to help them. And I was like, this person is being very difficult. My heart rate has gone up right now. So I know I'm under a little bit of stress, but I refuse to get angry about this. And literally dealt with him. I was as calm as much as I could be. I think we're on the phone for an hour. Apparently anyone else, when I speak to them, said, I would have hung up that phone after like 5 minutes or after 3 words. But I did my best. And it was like, it's fine. I've had a few other situations where people come on, they're really angry and they're like, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I do my best to be super calm, really empathetic, and literally, it's almost like I'm just throwing lots of love their way. I'm like, look, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that when you get off this call, you feel satisfied and you feel fine. And, they're like, oh, thank you so much. You've been so helpful. And I said, not a problem. You take care. Have a good night. Blah, blah. Again, I'm so sorry that you've had such an experience. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you so much. And I even want to put the phone down, send love. That's it. It doesn't matter what, who. And if people feel like they're heard and they're seen, that's a start. But the problem is, if you meet people where they are, it's good to meet people where they are, but don't stay where they are if they're not in a good place, because that's not helping, that's enabling. So if someone turns up and they're really irate, and you also jump in and be irate for them, you're not really helping them. It's like, okay, how can we move you up the emotional frequency scale, Because if you think about how your emotions are, the anger, depression are very low on frequency. Whereas if you think contentment, happiness, enlightenment, all that, they're a lot higher up and you're much calmer, very much, better state. But also what's funny is transversely, depression has a lower frequency than anger. So if you've got someone who's depressed, better to get them angry, because actually you're stimulating their system more. Once they're angry, then you can take them to a place of, okay, now let's see, now they're in, you can build up the dialogue of getting them to a place, because they're angry, they're more receptive. They're depressed, they're just like, so it's really interesting to kind of see that whole balance.
That's interesting. Carolyn, we have come to the end of the hour. This has been so interesting. I feel like you need to come back because we still got a lot to talk about. But in the Africana women community, we have a saying that goes, know your roots, grow your purpose. And I have some quick fire questions for you. And just say whatever comes to your mind. All right. You ready?
Okay. Yeah, go.
All right. So the first one, what are you rooted to?
God.
Okay. And the second one, what are your favorite ways to nourish your spirit, body, and mind?
Can I say reading the Bible?
Is that for all of them? Yeah, you can. You can say whatever you want.
That one works for me. I think even for example, the fact that I've had 3 hours sleep today, but I'm awake and I've got plenty of energy. There's only one way that's happening, and it's got nothing to do with me. It's all God. But no, yeah, I would say that is probably the biggest thing for me.
That's for your spirit?
For my spirit, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my spirit. What else did you say? Mind and body?
Yeah.
Body, good food. I love food. Yeah, that's my body. And it has to be pretty looking as well and smell good and taste good. And then for my body, kind of, what was the other one? Sorry? Mind. Okay, I love reading. Although I haven't done much of it lately, so I kind of need to get back into that. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then do you have a weakness that became your superpower?
I think everything that I've experienced in my life has probably become my superpower now, because when I encounter people, I recognize straight away, okay, this is what they need.
That's great. And the last one is, what do you know for sure?
I know for sure that if we step into our authority and understand how powerful we actually are on this earth, we can do great things.
That's beautiful. Oh, I have enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us and just share with us your wisdom. Loved it. You have to come back. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, please let us know. Tell the audience, how can they find out more about what you're doing and get in contact with you? Where do they find you?
So basically, you can either search my name, Carolyn Zimba, very easy. I'm on LinkedIn, probably my Facebook, and everything would show up on Instagram, whatever. But my Instagram is Empowered Alignment, very simple, 2 words. And then, or you can go on the website, which is www.theea.life. And EEA stands for Empowered Alignment. So it's THEEA.life, and all the information's on there. I do online sessions. I do group classes, and they're quite small, like 6 people, which means that you get personalized adjustments. And I'll be like, Cholo, what are you doing there? Can you move that foot? No, I didn't tell you to do that. Slow down. But it means that, rather than you watching something on like YouTube and kind of hurting yourself and getting it wrong, I really hone in and zip into what people are experiencing. So I do like, I'm at the moment going to be launching a program soon, which is a 7-week program called De-Traumatize Me. And that will be centered around all the microtraumas that people have and processing them out. And actually, you'll find that throughout the time, what you think you've come for, you'll end up going a lot deeper than you think. But it means when you come out the other end, you're a lot more resilient, much more rooted in yourself and your authority, basically. So, yeah.
So do you have to be in the UK to work with you?
No, it's online. Everything's online now. It's all online. I've become a dab hand at Zoom now. So we all have my television. I've got my little table. Everything's all set up. I've got my studio space. So the big living room is very helpful. Clearly, God had a plan, and He knew that I would have to do stuff online. But now you don't have to be in the UK. One of my clients is in Zambia. I've got another client in Philadelphia in America. So around. I've got UK as well. So spread out across the world.
Awesome. All right, guys, please go find Carolyn Zimba, and I'll spell it for you so you get it right. And God, it has been fabulous having you here. Thank you so much.
I think I said more than I expected, to be honest. Some of that stuff, I'm like, okay. Said that on public. Anyway, it's okay. We'll roll with it. It's fine.
We'll roll with it.
Come out.
All right.
Thank you so much. You've been amazing, and real honor to be here.
Can we just talk about how this lady was all up in my business? She's lucky I am coachable. So right at the beginning of our conversation, Carolyn said, you are an accumulation of your experiences and the stories you tell about yourself. What I really want you to catch is that you have the full power and control of how much energy you give to a story. You get to decide how much significance you give to an experience. You have the authority to choose your state of being, not doing. Hey, we're not saying that it will happen overnight. No, friend, it takes time to train yourself. So give yourself grace. Are you loving this health series as much as I am? Well, I love to hear your feedback. So hit me up on social media at Chulu by Design, especially on Instagram. Then you have to go tell Carolyn. So find her on social media at Empowered Alignment. Tell her thank you and that you heard her on the Africana Woman podcast. Share the love. All right? Thank you so much for making us part of your day by listening in. I truly appreciate you. So until next week, I want you to remember, know your roots, grow your purpose. This has been a production of Ulendo Creative Media. You can find out more about their services on www.ulendocreative.com.